They say failure is a lesson, that it's necessary, that it's part of the journey. But let me ask you something. If that's true, then why do most people fail and stay there? Why do they fall and never rise? Why do some burn out before their fire even catches? Because failure isn't just an event. It's not a chapter. It becomes a habit. It becomes a home people settle into, a quiet surrender dressed up as acceptance. And what they call reality is often just a reflection of the limits they agreed to without even realizing it. You don't drown by falling into the water. You drown by staying there. And in that stillness, that silent surrender, dreams decay, potential rots, and genius dies in silence, buried beneath excuses, distractions, and the noise of a world that rewards conformity more than courage. That's why most people fail. Not because they weren't good enough, but because they stopped before they ever became who they were meant to be. Look around. You'll see it in the eyes of the man who clocks into a job he hates. You'll hear it in the voice of the woman who once had dreams, but now tells others to be realistic. You'll feel it in the silence of people who once had fire, but now just exist. Most people fail because they've never been taught how to win from within. They chase success with empty hands and wonder why they come back with nothing. They weren't defeated by the world. They were defeated by the smallness of their own belief. But let me tell you something you weren't taught in school. Success isn't owned by the rich. It isn't reserved for the chosen few. It belongs to the relentless, the ones who refuse to trade their destiny for comfort, the ones who choose discipline over distraction, the ones who understand the world doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you demand with your actions. Think of Edison, 10,000 failed attempts at the light bulb. 10,000. You know what most people would have done after 10? Quit. After 100? Break. After 1,000, call themselves a fool. But Edison understood something most people never learn. Failure is data. It's refinement. It's the forge that builds the mind that can deserve success. See, success isn't a door you walk through. It's a mountain you become strong enough to climb. That strength isn't given. It's built with sweat, with sacrifice, with mornings where your alarm is your enemy and nights where your goals keep you awake. It's built in the shadows when no one is watching and no one is clapping. That's where champions are made. In silence, in solitude, in the quiet decision to refuse the average life. You have to decide right now that you will never again negotiate with mediocrity. Because mediocrity is a virus. It spreads through whispers, through the subtle lie that you've done enough, through the comfort of just getting by, through the praise of people who are secretly terrified that your growth will expose their stagnation. But you were not born to blend in. You were not built for balance. You were born to tip the scale, to break the mold, to be the exception, not the example of failure. You think Carnegie waited for permission? Think Ford asked for guarantees? Think Disney stopped after he was told he lacked imagination? No. They understood that clarity of vision is the antidote to failure. You don't get what you want, you get what you picture, vividly, obsessively, until the world has no choice but to respond. But here's the problem. Most people never see it clearly enough. Their vision is fogged by doubt, paralyzed by fear. And fear? It's a liar dressed in logic. It tells you to play safe, to slow down, to wait until it's perfect. But perfect is the enemy of possible. And possibility only becomes reality when you move, when you act boldly, with conviction that overrides your excuses. You don't need a roadmap. You need a reason. You don't need motivation. You need obsession. Obsession with who you can become. Obsession with the legacy you will leave. Obsession with the fact that you are not average, and you will not end up as a footnote in your own story. Average doesn't shout. It whispers. It seduces. It offers you comfort in exchange for your calling. But your calling demands that you suffer for a season so you can rise for a lifetime. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them call you crazy. History is full of people who were called crazy until their vision became the standard everyone else tried to follow. You are one decision away. One decision to rise when it's hard. One decision to go further than you're comfortable with. One decision to stop failing like the rest and start living like the few. And that decision? It doesn't come from the world. It comes from within. They say clarity is power, but most walk through life in a fog, chasing shadows, chasing paychecks, chasing approval, chasing everything except purpose. They wake up not with intention, but with reaction, reacting to emails, to bills, to what the world demands instead of what their soul commands. And that is the silent killer of greatness, the lack of clarity. You can't build an empire with vague dreams. You can't craft a legacy with blurry intentions. A lion doesn't chase everything. It stalks one prey with precision. That's how the king of the jungle hunts, not with chaos, but with focus. And you are no different. If you don't get clear, ruthlessly, painfully, unshakably clear on who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going, you'll spend your life building someone else's dream. And one day, you'll wake up in a reality that doesn't match your soul. That's how failure wins. Not at all at once, but drip by drip. One compromise at a time, one distraction at a time, one day where you just weren't feeling it. That's how the average life creeps in, quiet, casual, comfortable. But clarity cuts through the noise. When you know what you want, truly and deeply, you stop entertaining what doesn't matter. You stop negotiating with mediocrity. You stop spending your time trying to be liked and start spending your time trying to be legendary. Look at every great man and woman who shaped history. They had clarity that burned so hot, it melted obstacles. Martin Luther King didn't say, "I have a vague goal." He said, "I have a dream." And that dream wasn't fuzzy. It was sharp, vivid, laced with so much emotion and conviction that it echoed through generations. You need that kind of clarity, that kind of fire, because the moment you get clear is the moment your excuses expire. Suddenly, scrolling through nonsense feels like a betrayal. Sleeping in feels like sabotage. Procrastination becomes poison. Why? Because when the why is clear, the how reveals itself. Discipline stops being a burden and becomes a necessity. You start doing the hard things, not because someone told you to, but because your vision demands it. And that's where most people fail. They're trying to escape pain instead of moving through it toward purpose. But understand this, purpose requires pain. You cannot build a new body without sore muscles. You cannot build a new life without sore habits. Discipline is the price of admission, and it's non-negotiable. The difference between those who win and those who wish, they both feel resistance, they both feel fear, but one pushes through and the other retreats. You think Michael Jordan didn't feel doubt? You think Oprah didn't feel rejected? You think Elon Musk didn't feel like giving up when rockets exploded? They felt it, but they did it anyway. Because real discipline is not about feeling like it. It's about choosing it. Choosing to act when every voice in your head says wait. Choosing to move when your body begs to rest. choosing to persist when the world shrugs its shoulders. Discipline is not punishment. It's the path to freedom. It's waking up early, not because you have to, but because your dreams deserve your best hours. It's showing up consistently, not for applause, but for alignment. It's saying no to good so you can say yes to great. And when you stack those disciplined days, one after another, you begin to shift. Your mind sharpens, your habits harden, your will becomes weaponized. And suddenly, people start asking how you did it. They'll think it was luck. They'll think it was timing. They'll think it was talent. But you'll know. It was discipline. It was clarity. It was those cold mornings when you got up anyway. It was the lonely nights when you worked in silence. It was the sacrifice.
Most people fail because they confuse movement with progress. They stay busy, they stay active, they make to-do lists, they check boxes. They convince themselves that they're doing their best, but deep down, they know they're just dancing in circles, avoiding the real work, the hard work, the deep work. They live in a loop, waking up tired, doing things they resent, numbing themselves at night, and calling that life. That isn't life. That's survival. And survival is not the goal. You weren't born to survive. You were born to create, to build, to impact, to expand, to thrive. But you will never rise above the life you tolerate. And most people, they tolerate just enough pain to stay stuck, just enough frustration to complain, but not enough to change. Because change is violent. Change is war. It demands you kill the old version of yourself, kill the laziness, the victimhood, the justifications, the distractions, and bury the version of you that kept you safe but small. There is a graveyard of dreams guarded by people too afraid to evolve. But those who rise, those who refuse to be buried next to their unrealized potential, they're the ones who understand that pain is a compass. If it hurts, lean in. If it's uncomfortable, go deeper. The uncomfortable you feel when you're about to stretch beyond your limits, that's not a warning, it's a signal that you're on the edge of transformation. Because everything you want, everything lives on the other side of resistance. Every breakthrough begins with a breakdown of the old way, and every master was once a mess who kept showing up. So show up. Even when it's ugly, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's where growth lives, in the places you least want to visit, in the conversations you avoid, in the work you postpone, in the habits you keep promising to fix tomorrow. You want a better life? Start living like someone who deserves one. Wake up with purpose. Move with urgency. Think with clarity. Speak with intention. Work with ferocity. And never, ever hand your future to someone else's opinion. Because opinions are cheap, but your life is priceless. They'll say, that's risky. They'll say, that's unrealistic. They'll say, that's not how it's done. But remember, every innovator was told the same thing. Every pioneer was warned. Every giant was mocked until they became undeniable. So if they doubt you, good. If they whisper, good. If they walk away, let them. Let them watch from the sidelines while you build your arena. Because average wants company, but greatness walks alone at first. Until one day the world turns its head and asks, how did they do it? And the answer is simple. They refused to fail like the rest. They refused to settle. They refused to live a life that didn't ignite their soul. You see, most people talk about goals like decorations. They write them down in January and forget them by February. They call it a resolution, but it's nothing more than wishful thinking without resolve. Resolve is different. Resolve is born in the bones. It doesn't whisper, it roars. It doesn't ask for permission, it claims what it was born for. You need that kind of resolve, not a preference, a decision. A decision that your dreams are not optional, that your potential is not negotiable, that your story will not end like the rest. Because you're not like the rest. You feel it. You've always felt it. That pull, that knowing, that quiet voice that says, you're meant for more. That voice is real, and ignoring it is the greatest tragedy of all. Because life will pass either way.
The years will move, the clock won't wait, and the worst pain you will ever feel is not failure, it's wondering what could have been. Don't let that be your story. Don't let your dreams collect dust on the shelf labeled someday. Don't wait to be ready. You'll never be ready. Ready is a myth. You become ready by doing, by starting, by stepping into the storm without a guarantee. Because greatness is forged in uncertainty. It's built in the chaos. It's sculpted by pressure. It's born in the fire. And you were born to handle the fire. You were born to be uncommon, to lead, not follow, to break cycles, not repeat them, to live a life that demands attention, not from others, but from your future self who will look back and say, thank you for not giving up. And that is why you can't afford to fail like the rest.
There is a cost to everything in life. You will either pay the price of discipline today or the price of regret tomorrow. And let me tell you something about regret. It compounds. It grows quietly in the shadows, feeding on your could-haves and should-haves, until one day you're standing in front of a mirror and you no longer recognize the person staring back. Not because you changed, but because you never did. Because you stayed the same when your soul was begging you to evolve. And that's the price most people pay. A slow erosion of self. But here's the terrifying truth. The world doesn't care whether you rise or fall. It will keep turning. It will keep spinning. And if you choose not to act, not to rise, not to fight, the world will not mourn your mediocrity. It will simply forget you. That's why this matters. This isn't about motivation. This is about urgency. This is about understanding that you only get one shot at this life, one brief flicker of existence, one chance to pour everything you are into something that outlives you. Do you understand the miracle that you are? Do you grasp what had to happen for you to be here, right now, breathing, thinking, dreaming? The odds were stacked against you from the start, yet you made it. You beat 1 billion chances not to exist. And you dare waste that miracle by living a life of excuses? By blaming the economy? By saying you weren't born in the right city? By complaining about what your parents didn't give you? Please, that's the language of the defeated. That's the dialect of the masses. But you were born for more. Because greatness doesn't care where you started. It only cares where you decide to go. It's not about your background. It's about your backbone. It's not about your resources. It's about your resourcefulness. Lincoln was born in a one-room log cabin. Oprah was abused and told she'd never amount to anything. Steve Jobs was given up for adoption. You don't need a perfect start. You need a decision. A line in the sand. A moment where you say, enough. Enough waiting. Enough blaming. Enough shrinking. Enough sitting on the sidelines of your own life. You've been playing small for far too long, and you know it. You felt it every time you watched someone else rise and whispered, that could have been me. Well, guess what? It still can be, but the window is closing. Time is not a renewable resource. You don't get yesterday back, and tomorrow doesn't owe you anything. You've got to move, now, with urgency, with intensity, with an obsession so fierce it scares people. Let them scare you, because if your dreams don't scare others, they're not big enough. If your goals don't stretch you to the edge of insanity, they're not worthy of your life. You were not put here to tiptoe safely into death. You were put here to roar, to burn, to shake the world. But that only happens when you stop negotiating with fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being seen trying and not winning. Let me be clear. Failure is not the enemy. Comfort is. Because failure refines you. Comfort kills you. It lulls you into a sleepwalk existence where your days blur together and your soul suffocates. Don't let that be your story. Don't be the one who looks back and realizes you were the only one who could have changed your life and didn't. You are both the prisoner and the key. You are both the excuse and the answer. You are both the problem and the solution. And that is terrifying, yes, but it is also liberating. Because if you're the one responsible, then you're the one who can rewrite the ending. And you can begin now. No matter your past, no matter the failures, no matter how long you've been stuck, you can rise. Not slowly, not hesitantly, but with force, with fire, with the kind of momentum that makes the world take notice. It begins with one choice: to no longer fail like the rest, to no longer tiptoe through life like it's something you were forced into, to no longer accept the bare minimum as your ceiling, to own your life fully. Because once you do, you become dangerous, unstoppable, legendary. And when people ask you how you did it, you'll smile, because you'll remember you simply refused to die ordinary. The world has enough doubters, enough critics, enough spectators who point fingers from the sidelines but never step onto the field. What it lacks, what it desperately needs, are builders. People who see emptiness and construct vision. People who see failure not as a dead end, but as scaffolding on the way to greatness. People who don't just talk about potential, but live it. You must become one of those people. Because here's the truth they don't teach in school. No one is coming to save you. Not your boss, not your parents, not your government, not your partner. You are the one. The warrior, the architect, the force of nature. And the moment you take full, brutal ownership of that truth is the moment your life begins to change. No more waiting for a better time. No more blaming circumstance. No more looking for permission. You are not here to blend in. You are not here to be modest in your ambition. You are here to conquer, to transcend, to shatter every ceiling that was handed to you and build your own sky. Do you know what that takes? Vision. Not the kind of vision that fits on a vision board. I'm talking about soul vision, the kind that keeps you up at night and won't leave you alone, the kind that gnaws at you when you're off track, the kind that demands your blood, your sweat, your entire being. It's the same vision that built empires, that carved the Wright brothers' obsession into flight, that turned Edison failures into 10,000 steps toward brilliance. You see, the difference between the average and the immortal is not luck. It's vision followed by violent execution. People fail not because they dream too big, but because they stop chasing. They settle for almost started, almost finished, almost became who they were meant to be. But you were not here for almost. You're here to complete the mission. And that means taking massive, imperfect action. Now. Not next week, not next year, now. Because action is the antidote to fear. It is the enemy of anxiety, the destroyer of doubt, the cure to stagnation. Most people wait to feel ready, but those who win understand a simple truth. You act your way into feeling. You don't wait to feel confident. You act, and confidence follows. You don't wait to be perfect. You act, and mastery follows. You don't wait for clarity. You act, and vision sharpens. Action creates momentum. And momentum changes everything. It turns days into dynasties. It turns ideas into income. It turns possibilities into realities. Because once you're moving, once you're in the fight, the world begins to move with you. Doors open, connections form, energy compounds. But none of it happens without that first step. That decision to move even when it's messy, even when it's terrifying, even when you're filled with doubt. Because doubt doesn't disqualify you. It tests you. And most people fail because they don't understand that failure is part of the test. They hit a wall and think, this must not be for me. No, the wall is the path. Every great story has a chapter of darkness, of loss, of uncertainty. It's the hero's crucible, the part of the journey where most give up and a few push through. And those few, they emerge unrecognizable, stronger, sharper, hungrier, because the fire that burned them also forged them. So when life gets heavy, and it will, don't ask for the load to be lighter. Ask for your back to be stronger. Because strength doesn't come from ease. It comes from